2 years ago, my life imploded. My fiancée left me an hour before our wedding. For my brother. And my parents? They already knew. I'll never forget that moment, standing outside the venue, phone pressed to my ear, listening to Lauren's voice, calm and detached, as she told me she couldn't go through with it, that she didn't love me anymore, that she'd been seeing someone else. I barely had time to process before she dropped the real bombshell. It was Jay, my brother. I remember the way my stomach twisted, the cold sweat prickling down my spine. I thought I had misheard her, that there was no way. But no, she didn't even sound sorry. Just resigned. Like this was the only logical outcome, and I was the idiot who hadn't seen it coming. I hung up, walked straight into the venue, hoping, praying, that this was some kind of sick joke. But then I saw my parents. The way they looked at me. Pitying. Not shocked. That was when I knew. Jay had told them, and they hadn't said a damn thing. Instead of outrage or even basic support, all I got was my mother's soft sigh and a patronizing, "Maybe this is for the best, Evan. For the best." I wanted to scream, to punch something, but all I could do was stand there, shaking, as my father clapped a hand on my shoulder and told me to keep it together. The final straw? When my mom actually had the nerve to say, "You should be happy for them." Happy. That was the last time I ever spoke to them. I walked out of the venue that day and never looked back. I packed a bag, emptied my bank account, and left Austin, Texas, that same night. Drove until the roads blurred together. Landed in Seattle. Got a job, a tiny apartment, started therapy. For 2 years, I rebuilt myself from the ground up. Cut off everyone from my past. No phone calls, no social media, nothing. And for 2 years, it worked. Until last night. I had just gotten home from work, tossing my keys onto the counter, when there was a knock at my door. Not a casual knock. A frantic, desperate knock. Something in my gut twisted. No one knocked on my door like that. I hesitated, then opened it. And there she was. Lauren. She looked nothing like the woman I used to know. Her hair was tangled, her face gaunt. Dark circles smudged under her eyes, her lips cracked. Her hands trembled at her sides. For a second, I didn't recognize her. Then she whispered my name, and everything I had buried over the past 2 years came rushing back. I wanted to slam the door in her face. Instead, I crossed my arms, forcing my voice to stay even. "What the hell are you doing here?" Lauren swallowed, her throat working like it physically pained her to speak. "Evan, please. I need your help." I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "My help?" I gestured between us. "You left me at the altar, Lauren. For my brother. And now you show up, what? Hoping I'll forget all that." Tears welled in her eyes. Her bottom lip quivered. And for a moment, just a moment, I saw her. The woman I had once loved. But I crushed that feeling before it could take root. Lauren took a shaky breath. "It's not about me. It's about my son." My stomach flipped. "Son?" She must have seen the shock on my face because she nodded quickly. "Yes, your nephew." I blinked, my brain struggling to catch up. I knew she and Jay had gotten married. I knew, logically, that this could have happened. But hearing it out loud? That was different. Lauren stepped closer, wringing her hands. "Evan, please. He's just a baby. And Jay, he's not who you think he is." I stared at her. Then, against my better judgment, I spoke. "I know exactly who Jay is." My voice came out sharper than I intended. "And you still chose him." She flinched. Good. She deserved to feel that sting. "I made a mistake," she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I was making the right choice. Your parents, they..." She stopped herself, lips pressing together. I frowned. "They what?" Lauren shook her head. "It doesn't matter." "The hell it doesn't." She hesitated, then exhaled slowly. "They convinced me I was better off with Jay, that he could give me more. A better life, more security." My chest tightened. I shouldn't have been surprised. Of course my parents had been involved. Of course they had encouraged this. They had never wanted me to have anything good. I swallowed back the bitterness rising in my throat. "Why are you here?" She licked her lips, shifting on her feet. I'm trying to get full custody. Jay, he's manipulative, controlling. He cheated. He threatened me, Evan." My fingers curled into fists. I hated how easily I could picture it. Jay was the type of person who owned people, twisted them into whatever he needed them to be. Lauren's voice wavered. "He told me if I left, he'd make sure I never saw my son again. He has money, connections, he could do it. And my parents? They're helping him." Her voice cracked on that last part. I exhaled slowly. "So what do you want from me?" She looked up at me then, desperate. Your testimony. If you tell the court what kind of people your family really is, how manipulative they are, it could help me keep my son. A thick silence stretched between us. I let her words sink in. Let them settle. And then, very calmly, I stepped back and shut the door in her face. For a long moment, I just stood there, staring at the door, listening to the silence on the other side. And it felt good. But that feeling didn't last. Because less than 24 hours later, my past came crashing back down on me. The text started. Old friends. Mutual acquaintances. People I hadn't heard from since the wedding fiasco suddenly had opinions. Suddenly, I was the bad guy. Lauren's former maid of honor, who had vanished from my life when everything fell apart, sent me a long, self-righteous message about how I was proving my family right. That I was weak. That I never deserved Lauren in the first place. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, Jay emailed me. The subject line was simple. Stay out of family matters. His message was even shorter. If you get involved, you'll regret it. I stared at the screen, fingers twitching over the keyboard. For 2 years, I had erased him from my life. Now he was back. The arrogance. The entitlement. I almost replied. Almost. But then I stopped. I wasn't that guy anymore. So I deleted the email, turned off my phone, and went to bed. But I should have known. This wasn't over. I should have known it wouldn't end there. The next morning, I woke up to my phone vibrating against my nightstand. I groaned, rubbing my face before squinting at the screen. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail. Almost. But some sick part of me, some stupid part, needed to know if it was him. I answered. Yeah. Silence. And then, Evan. My stomach dropped. It was my mother. I sat up, suddenly wide awake. How did you get this number? She ignored me. Lauren came to you, didn't she? I clenched my jaw. My fingers tightened around the phone. You don't get to call me out of the blue after 2 years and act like. This isn't about us, she cut in sharply. It's about family. I let out a short, bitter laugh. You mean Jay? I could practically hear her disapproval. Your brother is going through enough without you adding to it. My head fell back against the headboard. So, let me get this straight. He destroys my life, cheats on his wife, threatens her, but I'm the problem. She exhaled. I know you're still angry. I barked out a laugh. Oh, do you? That's rich, considering you never even called me after the wedding. Never asked how I was. But now that your perfect son needs help, suddenly I exist again. I could hear the tightness in her voice. You need to let this go. Let it go. I swung my legs over the bed, blood pumping hot through my veins. That's what you said back then, too. That I should be happy for them. A pause. Then, softer, like she actually thought this was fixable. I don't want to lose you, Evan. Something in my chest twisted. Too late. I let out a slow breath, trying to steady myself. Then you should have fought for me before it came to this. Silence. And for the first time in years, I felt nothing for her. No anger, no pain, just emptiness. I pulled the phone away from my ear and ended the call. Then I blocked her number. I sat there for a while, staring at the wall, letting the weight of it settle. I should have felt good. Should have felt free. But all I felt was tired. I tried to push it all aside. I went to work. Had lunch with coworkers. Laughed at stupid jokes. But the whole time, my mind kept drifting back. To my mother's voice. To Jay's email. To Lauren's exhausted, desperate face on my doorstep. I knew what I should do. Stay out of it. Keep living my life. But that kid, my nephew, I hated that word. I hated what it meant. That there was some innocent child stuck in the middle of my family's chaos, and I was supposed to just pretend he didn't exist. I wasn't sure I could do that. That night, as I was grabbing a beer from the fridge, my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. I sighed, running a hand down my face. What now? This time, it wasn't my mother. It was a woman's voice, calm, professional. Mr. Carter? I frowned. Who's asking? This is Rebecca Hastings. I'm Lauren's attorney. I exhaled, shaking my head. Of course. She continued, unfazed. I understand you spoke with Lauren recently. She told me you're hesitant to get involved, and I respect that. But I need you to understand the stakes here. I leaned against the counter. I know the stakes. Then you know that Jay is using every resource he has to ensure Lauren never sees her son again. He's already manipulating the system, using his connections. I shut my eyes. Let me guess. My parents are helping him. A beat of silence. Then, yes. Of course they were. They've submitted sworn statements claiming Lauren is unstable. that she's been negligent, that she's unfit to be a mother. I rubbed my temple, a dull ache building behind my eyes. Jesus. I won't pressure you, Evan. But the reality is, Jay has influence. What he doesn't have is anyone willing to testify about his character. And that's where you come in. I let out a sharp breath. You want me to air out my entire family's dirty laundry in court? I want you to tell the truth. I scoffed. Truth doesn't always win, lady. No, she admitted. But sometimes, all a judge needs is to see the cracks. To recognize a pattern of control and manipulation. A pause. You can help with that. I stared at the floor, jaw clenched. This wasn't my fight. It shouldn't be my fight. But if I did nothing, Jay would win. And some part of me, some deep, bitter part of me, knew I couldn't let that happen. I let out a slow, resigned sigh. Send me what I need to do. For the first time in 2 years, I was walking back into the fire. The courthouse smelled like old paper and bad coffee. I sat on a stiff wooden bench outside the courtroom, bouncing my knee, trying and failing not to let the nerves get to me. Rebecca sat next to me, flipping through her notes. Across the hall, Jay stood with his lawyer, arms crossed over his chest, talking in hushed tones. He looked calm, collected, like this was just another business deal he was about to close. He still hadn't looked at me, which was fine, because I wasn't here for him. I wasn't even here for Lauren. I was here for the kid. I ran a hand over my face, exhaling slowly. I had told myself this wouldn't shake me, that I wouldn't let my family drag me back into their bullshit. But the second I stepped into this building, my past had wrapped around my throat like a noose. You okay? Rebecca asked, not looking up. Peachy. She smirked slightly, but her voice stayed serious. You'll be fine. Just tell the truth. Easier said than done. The courtroom door creaked open. A bailiff stepped out. We're ready for the next witness. Rebecca nodded. That's you. I stood, adjusting my sleeves. My palms were sweating. Jay still didn't look at me. I followed Rebecca inside. The room was smaller than I expected. Dark wood paneling. Rows of seats. The judge's bench looming at the front. Lauren sat at the plaintiff's table, hands clasped tightly in her lap. She looked exhausted. She barely glanced at me before dropping her gaze to the table. Jay was on the other side, looking every bit the polished, successful businessman he wanted to be. His suit was crisp, his expression cool, like he already knew how this would end. I took my seat in the witness box, gripping the wooden armrests. The judge, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes, nodded at me. State your full name for the record. Evan Carter. Rebecca stepped forward. Mr. Carter, could you describe your relationship with the defendant, Jay Carter? I didn't even glance at him. He's my brother. And how would you characterize your relationship? I exhaled slowly. We don't have one. A flicker of something crossed Jay's face, but I didn't acknowledge it. Rebecca nodded. Can you tell the court about your family dynamic growing up? I swallowed. Here we go. My parents always favored Jay, I said. He was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. I was secondary. Secondary. I gave a hollow smile. Background noise. Lauren flinched slightly. I ignored her. Rebecca continued. And how did that favoritism manifest? I let out a slow breath. Every decision, every family event, every conversation, it was about Jay. His achievements, his goals, his future. If I accomplished something, it was compared to him. If I failed, it was because I wasn't like him. Jay's lawyer scoffed under his breath. Rebecca didn't acknowledge him. Were your parents involved in Jay's relationship with Lauren? I clenched my jaw. This was the part that still made me sick. Yes, I said. They encouraged it. Even when she was still engaged to me. A murmur rippled through the room. Jay's lawyer stood. Objection. The judge held up a hand. Overruled. Continue. Rebecca nodded at me. Can you elaborate? I hesitated. Then, screw it. They thought she was too good for me, I said. That she would be better off with Jay. They pushed her toward him. Told her she'd have a more comfortable life with him. I swallowed, forcing myself to keep going. I found out later that they offered her financial support if she left me for him. Lauren closed her eyes. Jay's lawyer was on his feet again. Speculation. Rebecca barely glanced at him. We have text messages from the plaintiff confirming it. Silence. Jay shifted in his seat. Rebecca turned back to me. Mr. Carter, in your opinion, would the defendant be a suitable primary guardian for the child? I let out a breath. No. Jay's lawyer scoffed. Because of a childhood grudge? I finally looked at Jay. And then, very clearly, I said, because I know what kind of person he is. And I wouldn't trust him with a houseplant, let alone a child. Jay's jaw clenched. Rebecca nodded. No further questions. When I stepped outside the courtroom, my hands were shaking. It was done. I had said it all. Every ugly truth I had kept bottled up for years. And Jay, he had just sat there. Furious, sure, but powerless. I leaned against the wall, exhaling. A moment later, the door opened behind me. Lauren. She hesitated, then stepped closer. Evan. I didn't respond. She swallowed. I wanted to say thank you. I studied her. She looked small, worn down, but real. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger when I looked at her. Just tired. I nodded once. Don't waste it. And I walked away. I didn't go home right away. I walked. No destination, no real purpose, just moving, just breathing, trying to shake the weight pressing down on my chest. The sky was overcast, the air thick with the smell of rain. People passed me on the sidewalk, caught up in their own lives. None of them knew who I was. None of them knew that I had just burned whatever remained of my family to the ground. And yet, I still felt like I couldn't breathe. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I almost ignored it. Almost. But some sick part of me thought, what if it's about the kid? So I pulled it out. A message from Rebecca. Judge is reviewing everything now. Shouldn't be long. I swallowed. So this was it. Either Lauren walked away with full custody, or Jay won. I kept walking. A coffee shop on the corner caught my eye, so I ducked inside, ordering something just for the sake of doing something. I sat in the back, staring at the condensation on the window, my hands wrapped around the warm cup. I thought I'd feel better. I didn't. Because even if Lauren won, even if the kid got away from Jay, the damage was still there. The wreckage of everything my parents had done, everything they'd let happen, it was still carved into my skin. Nothing could change that. My phone buzzed again. For a second, I thought it was Rebecca. But no. Unknown number. I sighed, rubbing my temple, then answered. Evan. I froze. It was Jay. I clenched my jaw. I have nothing to say to you. You think this is over? His voice was low, dangerous. You think you get to walk away from this? I exhaled slowly, forcing my hands to stay steady. I already did. He let out a cold laugh. No, little brother. You just signed your own death warrant. I stared out the window, watching the rain finally start to fall. That a threat, Jay? A pause. It's a fact. You have no idea what you just started. I shook my head, suddenly exhausted. You've already taken everything from me. What else could you possibly do? Silence. And for the first time, I wondered if he didn't have an answer. I let the moment stretch, then finally, I said, goodbye, Jay. And I hung up. I blocked his number. Then, without thinking, I blocked my parents too. For the first time in my life, I had cut them all off. For good. I sat there, staring at my phone, my reflection barely visible in the window. And I breathed. I didn't know what I was expecting after hanging up on Jay. Maybe another round of texts, another email dripping with veiled threats. Maybe a last-ditch effort from my parents, some desperate attempt to guilt me into silence. But instead, silence. It was unsettling. I should have felt relieved, but I didn't trust it. Jay wasn't the type to lose and walk away. He was the type to wait, to plot, to find another angle. I spent the next few hours trying to distract myself, cleaning my apartment, flipping through TV channels without actually watching anything. But my brain kept circling back. What if I had just made things worse? I'd seen what Jay could do. I'd lived it. And a kid. That's what really gnawed at me. Because no matter what happened next, that little boy was still Jay's son. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was Rebecca. Verdict is in. Call me. My stomach twisted. I hesitated. Then, before I could talk myself out of it, I hit call. Rebecca picked up on the first ring. Evan. I gripped the phone tighter. That was fast. The judge ruled in Lauren's favor, she said. Full custody. Jay gets supervised visitation, pending a psychological evaluation. I let out a long breath. I hadn't realized I'd been holding it. It was over. Lauren won. The kid was safe. And Jay? Jay lost. You did good today, Rebecca said after a beat. I let out a short, humorless laugh. Doesn't feel like it. I get it. But trust me, what you did made a difference. I swallowed, nodding to myself. Thanks, Rebecca. Take care. Evan. The line went dead. I sat there, phone still in my hand. And for the first time in 2 years, I felt like I could finally breathe. I thought that would be the end of it. I told myself I wouldn't hear from Lauren again, not after this. She got what she wanted. There was no reason for her to reach out. But a week later, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number. I almost ignored it. Then, at the last second, I picked up. Uncle Evan? I froze. The voice was small, uncertain. I hadn't expected this. I hadn't even thought about it. I swallowed hard, my chest suddenly tight. Yeah, kid. It's me. Silence. Then, a soft sniffle. Mom says you helped us. I closed my eyes. I didn't know what to say, so I just told him the truth. Yeah, I said, voice rough. I did. A long pause. Then, quietly. Thank you. I let out a shaky breath, pressing my fingers to my eyes. And for the first time in a long, long time, I felt whole.